New motions in the Karen Reed case. A defense motion discusses Lucky Laughlin, the plow driver, who reports not seeing a body on the lawn that night. And the FBI visit to Colin Albert on the campus of Bridgewater State University was confirmed. But big news on the prosecution side as well. Microscopic red taillight glass was found on the clothing of John O'Keefe. That's not both sidesism. That's journalism. I want to clarify something. I feel nothing but respect for those of you who have passionate feelings about this case. For those of you that got the impression I don't, I sincerely apologize. I deeply regret it. But there's a bigger regret that I have. There's a huge difference between those that have passionate views based on their own weighing of the evidence and a mob. A mob is too sure. A mob doesn't ask questions. A mob turns on anyone who does ask questions. A mob is hungry. It's ravenous, eager to find victims. I saw the mob forming months ago, and to my deepest regret, I didn't make a stand. For that, too, I'm deeply sorry. To be fair to all of us that care about this case, that care about justice, that want the truth, it can be hard to tell when the line is crossed, when the mob is beginning to form. To stand against injustice, sometimes we have to be willing to stand up to the system. Let officials and courts know we're watching. Because if we don't, the powerful and the connected will use the system against us. So how do we know where the line is between standing up for justice and becoming part of a mob? Like any thorny ethical issue, the line can be blurry. But you know what I've learned over the last week? It's not that blurry. Most of us know when the line's being crossed. It can take time to find our voice. You start to realize with a growing sense that what you're seeing is wrong, and then the pressure builds inside you to stand up. Based on the flood of messages I've received over the last week, people are finding their voice. They're standing up, and the days of the mob are numbered. I want to talk a moment about independent journalism. In today's world, it's vital, badly needed. But think about why it's needed. It's needed because the flow of news is too often one-sided. And that's the problem we face, one-sidedness. On any divisive issue, we should be getting information from a variety of sources, not just sources that affirm what we already believe or what we want to hear. We really only have one prominent independent journalist around here. And whatever your opinion of him, he is needed and will be needed after this case is over. But people should not rely on one single source for any complex issue. There's a danger I've discussed many times on this channel. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine. All our senses, sight, smell, touch, etc., come from the brain inputting signals and measuring them against patterns on file. Our larger thought processes also work the same way. So the mind looks to connect dots. It looks to stitch them into some kind of narrative. We understand the world in terms of narratives. It's human. We all do it. However, the mind is very vulnerable to false narratives. And our need for narrative is so powerful that sometimes we buy into narratives when we shouldn't because the information is not clear. In the Karen Reed case, I bought into a narrative this past April when I heard that someone Googled how long to die in the cold at a time when she could not have known her friend was doing just that. Because if she did make that search at that time, she had to have known he was out there. But once I realized that the time of this search was actually not at all certain, and it is not, I started to question things. I realized that I might be buying into a false narrative, that I was being fed selective pieces of a story, manipulated. I certainly wasn't sure what happened to John O'Keefe, and I'm not at all sure now. I've read every court document, but you won't find all the answers there yet, because a charging document is a very limited thing. The prosecution only gives enough to secure the indictment. So there is a lot of information still to come. And there's also an FBI investigation into something. We don't know what they'll find. So we simply don't have enough information to know with certainty what happened. A lot of the things we now think are true will in the end prove wrong. You have a passionate opinion about what happened. Good. You stand up for your beliefs. Good. I feel our community is stronger because of you. But nothing is certain in this case. And that's true no matter how strong one's beliefs are, one side or the other. Just as important as standing up for your beliefs is asking questions, being open to new evidence. The mob doesn't like questions, though. The mob attacks anyone who asks questions. On this channel, you will find me asking questions calmly, I promise. Getting heated is actually very unusual for me. However, when the mob comes, I will stand up to it, though hopefully more gently. But from now on, I'm also going to stand up when the mob comes for others. You have my word. Now, let's discuss the direction of this channel. Standing up for truth, challenging narratives, and speaking justice for victims is what we've always done. And our team has done that on their own, in their personal lives. Dave spent 8 years walking not only in the footsteps of monsters, but of the victims. I vividly remember him telling me about Zach Ramsey, a little boy in Montana killed by one of the most heinous monsters of all time, Nathaniel Bar Jonah. The boy was taken on his way to school by this 400-pound beast in an alley. Dave spent 2 days unshaved and not eating, walking that alley, identifying with the victim. If you read his book, that's what sets it apart. We'll link to it below. It's not just about monsters. Erin passionately stands up for Karen Read because she strongly believes she's a victim of injustice. There are many cases she studied, and identifying deeply with the victim is what draws her to these cases. April from our Las Vegas team grew up in Detroit. For her, crime and crime victims were things she encountered up close. She told me a really revealing story. As a girl, she used to wander into the police station and stand before the wall with the posters of the missing. So she's always been drawn to their story, and she'll be starting a new segment on this channel called Missing in Vegas. One of our researchers, Brittany, suggested we dig deeper into the personal stories of the victims. So we're going to do that. And we're also going to continue to look for tips and leads into unsolved cases. So please keep reaching out. Another thing we're working on developing is our own profiling system. And we invite you to join us in the conversation. We're going to talk about that project a little later after we go over the new motions in the Karen Read case. But now I'd like to bring on some of our team. Many of you know them, but for the noobs, this is Dave McGrath, author of the book Monster, The Life and Crimes of Wayne Chapman. He's a longtime investigator with law enforcement experience. And I challenge you to find anyone who has studied as many true crime cases as he. Erin works in corporate research, has a law degree, and has studied film and screenwriting. And she has a true crime book in her future. I'm sure of it. So let me bring them on. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here with me.
Everybody. Hey. Hello, Dubs.
What up?
Hi, Kev.
Hey, guys. How you doing? What's going on, Dave?
Oh, quiet week on the YCT front. Nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
How you doing? Hope you guys are enjoying a great Saturday. Beautiful weather. I haven't heard any gunshots here in Providence. I think we're good here. So
the night is still young.
Oh, very young. It's only 8 o'clock.
So we had some interesting, it was unfortunate that these things always come out in a Friday late night dump. I didn't get the new documents until about 11 o'clock last night. So thank you for the person who sent me those documents. I really appreciate it. So there were several interesting things on it. And to me, welcome to the fence. I mean, there were things to support both sides of the case as there often are in this case. So Erin, would you like to, I think you wanted to discuss the taillight glass found on John's clothing.
I do. It's burning. So I thank you for sending the docs over. I got them right after you did when you put them up in our conversation and stayed up until, I don't know, at least 1, laying in bed trying to read them on my tiny phone screen. So I had to print them out and actually read them this morning without the eye fatigue. And you brought this up and I read into it and looked at it and stuff. And I want to discuss the microscopic pieces of red and clear apparent plastic that were found on John O'Keefe's clothing. Yeah, so that to me, I know that we had a little bit of a discussion about it earlier, but that to me does not change my mind at all. I think that there are explanations for how it got there that do not involve Karen Read hitting John O'Keefe with their car. I think that two scenarios, go in my mind. I know a lot of people in the comments, actually, I'm looking at it, are saying that the taillight fragments could have been planted. I don't really buy that. I think that it's sure entirely possible given the history of this, but I don't see them being planted unless someone was really stealthy about bringing them into the morgue, the hospital, sprinkling them on his clothing. I don't buy it. My intuition told me that from reading the accounting of the affidavit from the prosecution and from the defense, they say that in both they're in agreement on Karen Read actually laying on John O'Keefe for warmth when the authorities showed at the scene at 34 Fairview. How is that not a way that this could have happened? I mean, she was laying on him. She did show two other people the broken taillight on her car, cracked taillight, whatever you want to call it, but just touching that. If there was a break in the taillight, if there was a full crack, there would be microscopic pieces after you touch it. And then she laid on top of his body. So how would it not be transferred that way? I'm not saying she was rubbing it all over, but even brushing against it with your clothes, you're going to get microscopic pieces. And then if she's laying on top of his body, that is a perfectly good explanation of how it could have happened.
So similar to like DNA contamination, so where something just
we're
so
talking microscopic. So, right. I mean, we're not talking about large chunks. We're not talking about the chunks that you see in the snowbank in the pictures and the filings. We're talking about microscopic pieces, which was found on his clothing according to trace analysis performed in the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory. And that in and of itself also brings me to my second point, because cross-contamination happens. We saw, what's her name? The Massachusetts lab tech that had contaminated a whole bunch of evidence and negated a whole bunch of guilty verdicts.
Yep, so I believe she just went to prison, Dubs.
Did she?
Right. Yeah. Not to jump in.
I've been so consumed with this that I haven't seen news on that. But we do know that she contaminated other pieces of evidence. And if these are indeed microscopic pieces, it's a pretty easy thing to transfer unwittingly or on purpose. Either way.
Good stuff. Dave, you good?
I don't see it. Sorry.
Dave, you got any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I totally get down with all of that, but after, like you said, the docs came in late last night, I didn't see anything that you put out. Perhaps I wasn't paying attention at the time. I apologize. I'll take another look. Honestly, I have to say it. I know that you're going to get mad at me, and not get mad at me, but you're going to say you play into the room here. But since the first minute I saw the first story back in April, I've actually never been more convinced of Karen Read's innocence than I am right now. And it all comes back to the fact that the initial reports have now all changed. All the timelines have changed. There's only one more interesting aspect of the story that I even care to cover. And that's just how the FBI got involved, because we know now that the feds are watching these guys like hawks. And the reason why you're getting all of these timeline changes, you're getting the DA who looks like he's going to explode there. His name's escaping me, Morrissey. coming out and trying to correct the record on whether Proctor was there or not. Now they're saying he ended up reporting to the Canton police station, even though his reports clearly state I was there on scene. These guys are feeling the heat, and the rats are running off the ship right now. And again, you know, that's the only thing I'm interested in now is that FBI investigation. We now know that maybe Jennifer McCabe's daughter ended up getting a grand jury subpoena. Why in the world would they be interested in a 19-year-old girl who allegedly wasn't there? Oh, well, I mean, you guys can venture to guess why they'd be still interested in that. And again, I've never been more convinced that this young girl, well, a little older than me, but yeah, this 43-year-old woman who has her own health problems, by the way. You know, we hear a lot about Jen McCabe's health problems and other people's problems and how they're breaking down and blah, blah, blah. She has her own health problems, you know, and is getting put through the ringer. And for what? What are we doing now? So, you know, just to reiterate, I've never been more convinced of Karen Read's innocence than I am right now. And it all has to do with the fact that anybody who knows that you don't fuck with paperwork, you know what I mean? I've only been at the sheriff's department. I haven't been like this long storied law enforcement career like Sean or anybody, but I've been through 2 law enforcement academies, and I've spent 18 weeks of my life getting drilled into my head that you do not fuck with paperwork. Like, it's going to go in front of a grand jury. It's going to go in front of a judge. Your whole department's reputation is on the line when this paperwork gets to people and your name is on it. And to continually, all this time later, to be screwing around with paperwork is, Kevin, it's very telling. It's very, very telling. Something incredibly odd and abhorrent in law enforcement circles is happening right now. Timelines are changing. Where people showed up is changing. And we already know the silly bullshit that happened the night that it happened when they didn't, you know, the crime scene may or may not have been taped off. You know, I know that you've heard some other things. You know, they at least did not interview witnesses apart from each other, which is protocol, obviously. They let the main suspect at the time leave, or at least the best witness leave. And, you know, I mean, it's just, it's a real bridge a bridge too far for me to think anything other than just complete innocence for this young lady and something deep going on cover up wise.
Okay. All right. I want to just weigh in that my approach is to actually weigh the evidence in a complicated case. And I want to respond about the glass. So, taken in isolation, the easiest explanation for taillight glass being found on John is that he was struck by the broken taillight. Now, that is that if you would just look at that one thing, that's the easiest explanation. However, in any case, if you look deeply at it, where there's a trial and you go back to, usually there's a historical cases and you look at all the court documents and all the witness statements and everything, the JFK assassination or whatever, there's always little outlier things that at first look really powerful one way, but it's important to look at everything in the context of the totality of the evidence. So for me, if I look at the taillight glass, I say the most easy and obvious explanation is that it came from the car that's striking her. But you have to be open to other possible explanations and then look at the totality of the evidence. So if you look at the totality of everything else and it adds up to Karen Read being innocent, then you would look to another explanation, such as the one that Aaron really well offered there. So,
yeah, Dubs, you did a great job with that.
That's my approach on that. But to me, at this point, it's very powerful evidence by itself to the fact that he was struck by that taillight. And it's going to be hard to get around that, but that doesn't mean they can't get around it. So, I was going to try to go at this piecemeal, but we went through a lot of stuff on that one there. So Aaron, do you want to discuss the FBI aspect of the case or the part that was revealed about the plow driver or anything along those lines?
I have one thing about Lucky's account that just hit me the wrong way, and maybe I was misreading it. So I was kind of like, wait, how did this happen? But the FBI being involved, I got to stay away from that one, because honestly, the whole thing is really strange from where I'm sitting. Like, I know a little bit from law school about FBI involvement and TV and reading John Douglas books, but I do not pretend to be an expert at all on why the FBI would be involved in something like this. I mean, my instinct and my legal research shows me basically that the FBI doesn't get involved with nothing. You know, there's got to be something. And that something is not a hit and run. Like, not by any stretch of the imagination would a hit and run be what the FBI is coming in for. Widespread police corruption, most certainly. And then, you know, maybe the murder of a police officer if the circumstances were extenuating. But honestly, like, given the prosecution's explanation of what happened, of what Karen Read is being charged with, there's nothing in my mind that's going, yeah, that tracks with the FBI being involved. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that Karen Read got her car up to 30 miles an hour, broke a taillight like that on a soft body. Again, I know, Kevin, you'll argue it very eloquently and much more eloquently than I will, but I just find that I would be absolutely shocked if that were the case.
I haven't seen anything in any report about 30 miles an hour or 27.
Well, 27, yeah.
But I haven't seen that either. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that just gets injected into this by the defense. And that's what we have to be careful about, because, listen, whether she's innocent or not, they're doing what defense teams do. They manipulate opinion. And that's their job. That's not a criticism. That's their job. But they do it, and you have to be always on guard when you're getting selective bits of a story. I've read the documents, and I haven't seen anything about her going 27 miles an hour. So,
yeah, Karen, I got to push back on you just a little bit. I love you, man, but I really do. You know that. I've read every bit of this, and, you know.
Did you see anything on 27 miles an hour?
I don't, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't remember every last detail. I got that from somewhere. But nothing has compelled me to believe. And again, I'm not trying to rile you up, that especially what's come out this weekend. I mean, again, anybody who knows, I mean, just start from ground zero with the improper reporting and the fake names and the misspelled names and the misspelled addresses, and you know, nothing about it is right. It all looks there's been nothing in any of these documents, and I've read them all hundreds of times, that tells me that Karen Read did this, and I've been wrong about it the whole time. You know, just, there's been times, of course, when you know, I've waffled on anything. You know, I constantly check myself. I wrote a whole 392-page book that I go, was I researching, or was I just have a bias and go out and find things to confirm my bias, which is something you got to fight. But, you know, I can't see that. I can't see that. But guys, to me, you know, just as a group, the main thing for me is how the FBI got involved. And me and Kevin have talked about it many times, and that's something that we should really, really explore. It's the key point.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely. It's I've been, you know, when we were hearing, way back at the beginning of this case here, I was hearing these rumors from other law enforcement friends that there was an FBI investigation, that they actually, the way it was put back then, that they took over the investigation and as a federal grand jury, you know, but there were rumors in that too. So I really didn't want to play that up, because I couldn't imagine. And I had this discussion with Sean many times too. And we tried to figure out what would predicate an FBI investigation. And so for my research into it, and Erin graduated law school, so maybe after I explain this, she can tell me where I've got this wrong. But my understanding
Don't count on it, man. It's been a long time.
with an FBI investigation, or any federal involvement in investigation, there has to generally be a couple of things that might predicate it. One would be, it has to involve a federal issue, federal law. Okay. So such as crimes, for instance, that cross state lines, or crimes that, you know, so possibly mass public corruption could be an issue here. The other thing that can trigger an FBI investigation is if it's ordered by the U.S. attorney. That's a federal attorney, and that would have been Rachel Rollins back
Injected in my arm, Kevin. Injected in my arms.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is another interest. And then the third thing would be a state police agency can request assistance, like in a serial killer or like in the Delphi murders.
Yeah.
They can request assist. So the FBI isn't running the investigation, but they're along on it. This doesn't seem like something where the FBI is along on it because they're not. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. Maybe it's hard to tell. But it seems like maybe an independent investigation by the FBI. So the question would then be, what predicated it, or were they ordered by you? Does that ring as true, Erin?
Yeah.
Guys, let me step out for a second. My son's informing me he needs to use the bathroom. Excuse me, guys. Talk amongst
Hi, Connor. Hey, Connor.
Hi, Connor.
I hope that's not Connor.
Oh God, I hope not. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm pretty sure that covers just about everything. And again, don't quote me. I graduated from law school like 12 years ago, so it's been a while. But yes, a U.S. attorney involving or requesting the FBI's assist is certainly one. Crossing state lines is another. So yeah, I mean, the police corruption seems like the most likely thing here. I know that's not your take, but that's certainly mine.
No, I would say that is my take. That is my take.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah, but
I also think too that the Birchmore case may have been another catalyst for this.
Yes.
Somebody commented that, and it's been a minute, so I wanted to give her credit, and I can't find her name now. But that's a good point. I mean, it could be that. It could be two incidents, both involving some of the same folks that were brought to a hinky conclusion, basically. So I think that certainly might have had something to do with it. It definitely seems like it would have been a catalyst from where I sit.
Yes, and that actually brings up a really interesting point, because and me and Sean have discussed this too. Was there some ongoing federal investigation into an unrelated matter that this got swept up under? So, for instance, if there is a cover-up, say involving Canton police, and there's an investigation of something else, and someone catches something, FBI catches something on a wire or some other tip or a lead or something like that, right. So they expand their investigation into this. That seems, it's also speculative that it's hard, but it does seem like a plausible thing. We haven't speculated it much on the past because we couldn't confirm there was, but now in these motions, that seems to completely confirm that there is an FBI investigation. They delivered a subpoena to Colin Albert on the campus of Bridgewater State University. So that confirms that the FBI is involved, and it makes it highly suspicious. What are they looking at?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously pretty tight-lipped about the whole thing. It's not public, really. I mean, we're all pretty familiar with how to find what we need to find. And Turtle Boy, again, has been an irreplaceable source of information as far as that angle of everything goes. But I don't understand why the FBI would want to talk to not only Colin Albert, but Allie McCabe as well. I mean, because why? If there was an investigation that had already started, be it, whether it was started with reference to the Birchmore case or even before that, I mean, maybe it was just.
Maybe explain to people Allie McCabe, Erin. Just can you explain to people that might not know Allie McCabe and what she was called in for, presumably? Okay.
Assuming, I mean, and I got this information from Turtle Boy, but it tracks. I think that Allie McCabe is the one who supposedly brought Colin Albert home from the Fairview house that night. The time is definitely disputed by many because they claim, Jen McCabe and Allie McCabe claim that they have Life 360. Is that what it is? Life 360 data.
I hear that. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I've heard. What is it?
I think it's for a kid who has a phone, so their parents can see their locations and their activity. My kids aren't old enough for that yet, so I don't know.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, Life 360 is something you put on a, put
like
on
a
phone
tracker,
with the
right?
people. Yeah, I can watch, what my son's doing in school or whatever, keep an eye on them. There's one thing too, I'm sorry about that, guys.
It's good.
That I've been trying to get to for 2 weeks on the show, and it's about John O'Keefe's injuries, which are, he doesn't have a punctured lung. He doesn't have a broken rib. He has no torso injuries at all. And it's really, again, his injuries are much more consistent with someone who has been beaten and not somebody who's been hit by a car at that angle where you expect blunt force to the body. And that's really hard for me to get over. And also
100% agree. 100% agree. And that's, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make clear. That's always been I've made it every time on this channel. You have there's no way of a taillight that I can see can hit you in the back of the head. And some other part of the car doesn't hit you in the shoulder or the back, or if your arm's up in the ribs or something.
Right.
So to me, it's the most troubling aspect of the case that I can't solve. That doesn't mean there might, and Wendy Murphy's absurd explanation.
Wendy Murphy.
I don't want to tackle, but some of the things she said were just so absurd. They actually do more damage to the prosecution. But, the idea that a vehicle is going to slam into him so hard that from the front that it knocks him back and he falls in his head on the electrical box or the fire hydrant or something like that. Well, that could happen, except it would leave a bruise somewhere on the front where the vehicle struck him.
Right.
And from my understanding, I'm not seeing any evidence of that. And I think what people on the prosecution would say is that on their side of it is that we haven't seen the entire medical examiner's report. That may be true, but the defense has seen it, and they keep making clear, and they did in the motions yesterday too, and I underlined them to make sure that there were no other injuries except for the head, the arm with the abrasions, and some scratches on the face and the swelling of the eyes. They made clear. So I would find it very unusual that the defense would just completely lie in the document about what they're reading. I can't rule anything out. So yeah, the injuries are really, really strange, and they have to be explained. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I think that, and in regards to the arm and the dog scratches or the alleged dog scratches, to me they're dog scratches. But when Karen's defense team, and I read this, I saw this again in a paperwork, and it was something that just missed me. And it's the timeline of when they did the subpoena to animal control in Canton to get a look at that dog, and when they actually got rid of that dog was like very short time. So the minute that they heard that they were onto the dog, that dog was gone. And again, it's not how innocent people behave. If Karen Read struck John O'Keefe, what does it matter about the dog? You know what I mean? Don't tell me that you there's so much little circumstantial things that really is hard for me to get past. And, never mind the big things, and that dog thing. And I know it's kind of I see the posts all the time. Where's Chloe? And I always go, whatever, it's not really needed in this case. I think there's so much evidence, but it's still very interesting. It's not how normal, not guilty people behave, to say the very least. And, it just adds up and it starts to snowball a lot for me. So, and especially seeing after what we saw this weekend with this mea culpa on the timelines, it's going to be really hard for the prosecution to overcome, irregardless of what evidence they may or may not have that we've been told they've been sitting on for 2 years.
Right.
There's so much reasonable doubt there. I just don't see in a million years how Karen Read gets a guilty on this. But going back to the FBI thing, because I missed it, I apologize, guys. I would beg the 300 people who are watching this live right now to go take a look at the report regarding Rachel Rollins and how she resigned from her position, and tell me if it makes any fucking sense to you, and what she's done compared to what every other politician in the country's done to get that resignation. I
did a video on that back in April, and me and Dave were, I think, I didn't know Erin back then, but me and Dave were the only people that would seem to agree that this is bizarre. That she was pushed out for the kind of things that they all do. And it seems when I was, and I'm no fan of Rachel Rollins, but I'm reading through this and I'm like, this makes no sense. And then I'm saying this comes at the same time that an FBI investigation might have been ordered. And I couldn't help connecting those dots. But other than that, it's just dot connecting. So it is interesting.
It is very, and again, I'm no everyone who knows anything about me knows that I am a true red conservative. I despise Rachel Rollins, but she's a good Democrat. She environmental justice, hating white people. I mean, everything. She clicks the box. So to see her have to resign over something that, I mean, Jesus, if she had to resign for that, I mean, Joe Biden should be in Gitmo tomorrow. You know,
I think it was she not claimed a fundraiser in Andover, and then she maybe used her own political funding to go to an event in California or something. And just those two things. And that, not that those aren't wrong, but they all do it. And it just seems kind of, why don't you just...
It's a look the other way thing.
Yeah, it's not
100% of the time.
It's not like she took bribes from a foreign government or anything like that, So I mean, it seems a little picking at some small potatoes. And Rachel Rollins would have been the one had it happened in that time frame. We don't know. It might have happened earlier. It might have happened well before Rachel Rollins even got on the job. But she would have been the one making that decision. And who did she not like or have beef with amongst in her party? We'll never know. But it's just an interesting side note that she would resign sort of in the middle of this whole thing. It
could be a coincidence, but it's interesting. Yeah. And to resign on petty reasons like that. I just want to add too that I've seen this in other cases, and a lot of things that just look a certain way now will look different at the end. I'm not saying that's the case. Listen, that is going to be the case here for one side or the other. So either the people that think the prosecution is correct, at the end of the day, either they're going to find something that says, wow, how did I miss that? Or the defense, all those people are going to say, wow, how did I miss that? I mean, it's just so, when you have a case that things don't add up, it may add up after the trial, or, so that's my only warning that people should be careful about, is that a lot of things don't need to be out yet. The prosecution is not going to, they don't play it that way. They just give you the bare minimum they need to get an indictment. And then later on, you find stuff out. So,
they're not allowed to, Kev. It's not just that they don't, they can't.
Well, they could have snuck some more information into the motions to clear
into
things
the motions,
up.
But they can't front the media and say
no, they can't. But they could.
They don't have that,
right? But they could get more information into the motions that would clear things up. For instance,
they definitely could.
I'm told that they probably have video. Again, I'm only saying this because I'm not saying it's true. That they probably have video based on stuff that's reported on their evidence list that shows Karen driving home. Shows the back that would show whether her taillight is broken or not. I don't know that, but there are strategic reasons that they might not reveal that. They have to tell the defense. The defense would know through discovery right now, but the defense, if it's not in Karen's advantage, would have no reason to report that to us. Right. So, but the defense could, Lally could have cleaned, if they have something like that, Lally could have cleaned it up in June during that hearing, and he chose not to. And if they could have cleared it up and didn't, I find that to be shameless, because you're letting that would mean you're letting all this division go in the public community for no reason. Right. So, I mean,
but Kevin, they have to. You have a town divided. You have MSP, Canton Police, all potentially going down in this, but they have to go out with the sham because federal oversight is here. They can't do it now. It's going to trial. It's going all the way through. That's what's happening. No one's going to clear anything up for you because these guys are looking over their shoulder. So we have to play make-believe.
But I think it's also just a standard legal tactic. Aaron, maybe you can tell me more about this, but they're going to tune out a standard tactic in a trial like this. You make the indictment, give them only what you need to you make the charging document, give them only enough to get the indictment through. And then for the most part after that, you're just fighting motions in court, but you're not trying to try it in public. And they don't care. They don't care about the public opinion. They should, but they don't.
Oh no, they care. They just can't do anything about it.
Well, no, but they could put more in the motions, couldn't they?
Yes, they could. They could, but they can't. They can't say anything. And what they're putting in those motions, they're putting the bare minimum, like you said. They don't have to put every piece of evidence they have in there because that'll show their full hand.
Exactly.
They just need to show enough to show that the charges are warranted to be seen in front of a judge. Right. That's it.
Right.
So they're not going to they're not going to tip their entire hand in a motion and just say, this is everything we have. fight that, because
Mhm.
that does the defense's job for them. What they
Let's,
need to do is piecemeal it like they have been, but don't change it around. Don't submit another affidavit that with the wording changed at the end of every new motion that you're filing. That's ridiculous. That
So,
just
Dubs, what
looks
do you
like
make-
you're running scared.
What do you make of the timelines all changing this weekend, and the Michael Morrissey, the corrupt DA who runs unopposed with 98% of the vote?
Yeah.
What do you make of all that? Like, give me a
I-
short one sentence on it.
One sentence. Oh Jesus, I don't know if I can do that. But I will. Okay, the Michael Morrissey statement is completely unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it, and it shouldn't have happened. He has to know it was a mistake. And then, as far as the changing timelines goes, like, yeah, okay. In some cases, you are going to have more discovery happening throughout the motions hearing period of pretrial. And you are going to be getting more evidence from different places. So your discovery requests are going to be longer, more robust. I mean, have you seen this? It's insane. There's hundreds of exhibits here. And you do want to know everything you can. And yeah, things evolve, but the timeline should not be changing that much from one motion to the next. Like, sure, little inconsistencies, sure, but no, not a full change of everything.
Can you mention one other thing, Kev, that I find very interesting? What do you make of the fact that Michael Proctor, after the Turtle Boy story broke about Lucky Loughran admitting that he plowed the road and he's a very astute guy when he's out there plowing? I've plowed a couple winters. You're taught to kind of, make sure you're paying attention to everything. You don't hit animals, you don't hit children, and you got to be very astute out there on the road. What do you make of the fact that Proctor has now gone out and talked to Lucky again after being confronted with the story about the GPS data working instead of not working, as he stated in his report?
Is that the first time he talked to Lucky, or is that just he did it again after?
I think that's the first time he's talked to him.
Do we know that for fact?
All I've gotten the documents is that that's the first time that he's gone out.
Okay.
To talk to
All
Lucky.
right. I mean, if he didn't talk to him originally, then that's sloppy police work. But it also, if he did talk to him and then didn't find anything interesting, put it in the report and then, or whatever, but he obviously had to talk to him after that Turtle Boy story broke out because of what what he reportedly told Turtle Boy. So you have to go back and see, all right. And that's why Lucky's probably going to be on the stand during the trial, so he had to go back the second time. But if that's the first time he talked to Lucky, yeah, that seems like at best sloppy. So
at best sloppy, and at worst, you don't want to talk to Lucky Loughran because it would be
it's possible
very damaging to your case.
It's possible, but those are the kind of things that the picture will become more clear later on. So just for an example, it's been reported, and so the second thing in this case that has bothered me from the beginning, I think probably has bothered you guys too, is the fact that Brian Albert and his wife never came out of the house that morning. And so to me, the way I pictured it in my mind, I checked it up. The 911 call was an hour before sunrise. And so it's pitch dark, it's snowing. I looked into where their house, I looked at the blueprint, and the master bedroom is right looking down on where John was, right on the flagpole. You got two windows there. So I picture it pitch dark, silent, a bucolic neighborhood, right? And all of a sudden, you have a fire engine, which is really loud, the engine of it, an ambulance, I don't know how many squad cars, flashing lights all around, and sirens that are on the lawn. And to me, I was like, how could you not wake up? But I've since been told, and that it was confirmed, that they did not come in with sirens. So now it's just a matter of would those flashing lights have woken him up, and the sound of that engine? That's obviously a little bit more dicey than if the sirens, they would have get up. So I mean, things start to mold together over time on this, and sometimes blanks get filled in, and so we just have to be really, really careful. But I do want to talk about Lucky the plow driver, because this is a fascinating part of this case. And I don't care what side you are on this case, someone is on this case. It's just absolutely fascinating. Aaron, you don't happen to have that handy, do you? The part it's in the defense motion.
Oh
Hey,
yeah, right
really
here.
quick, guys. I just
Teeny tiny.
I got confirmation that was the first time. This is the best possible source you could have. That Lucky Loughran had never spoken to anybody at MSP before the Turtle Boy story.
Okay, so I mean, it's bad police work, no question. Aaron, what can you find? It's down where the motion, where the defense motion, where they describe Lucky. It's only a one paragraph thing. Can you read that out loud? The part where
Are
he
you
didn't
talking about the first?
It's the part where the private investigator talked to him, and then another sort. Just read how that's worded because it's kind of important.
Okay. Significantly on February 15th, 2022, defense investigator Paul Mikowski interviewed Bill Walsh, blah, blah, blah. He interviewed Lucky Loughran. Okay. During the course of that interview, Mr. Loughran explained that he had been the person responsible for plowing the area, which includes 34 Fairview Road, for 3 years. According to Mr. Loughran, he arrived at the DPW yard at 2 a.m. on January 29th and left the yard in his snowplow truck by 2:15 a.m. He indicated that his route took him down Fairview Road, with 34 Fairview Road, Brian Albert's residence, located on his left as he plowed towards Cedar Crest Road during his first pass. Do you want me to keep going?
Yes, you're getting to the important part. Go ahead.
Mr. Loughran indicated that he made 2 or 3 passes down Fairview Road on the early morning of January 29th and had good visibility from the truck cab because it was not snowing very heavily when he first started his shift. Mr. Loughran repeatedly stated that if there was a body in the front yard of 34 Fairview Road, then he absolutely would have seen it. In a separate statement, Mr. Loughran acknowledged that he was also interviewed by investigators from the FBI who indicated to him that plow trucks were equipped with functioning GPS and that the GPS data established that he actually passed 34 Fairview at 2:30 a.m. on the 29th. There's more.
Please. I'm sorry. I want to get to the part where he talks about the FBI. So get to that.
Okay. So talk amongst yourselves for a second. Let me find it. This is teeny tiny, guys. Just bear with me.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. This is live.
It does seem to be that, there's a lot of things in here that we could chalk up to bad police work. Kind of makes you think, either it's kind of like what I say about politicians. Like, are you just incompetent or is this on purpose? You know what I mean? And I usually, me, Kev, I love a good conspiracy. So I usually think it's on purpose. Like, the pain is the point. You know what I mean?
I think everybody loves a good conspiracy. There's something fun about them, but that's the danger of them too. So, but go ahead. Did you find it, Aaron? Or
which part of the FBI are you talking about?
This is
about when the FBI was out with the private investigator.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's not in this motion. I don't think.
What did you have to say about it, Kevin?
Yeah. So what I read was, and I read the document carefully. If you find it, Aaron, interrupt me and go into it. So it was kind of curious the way it was worded, that the private investigator interviewed Lucky and learned that Lucky didn't see a body there when he made the pass. But that's all the private investigator learned. Then it has a kind of curious, deft way that they worded it I think it also used in a separate statement. Lucky reported that he was taken out by 2 FBI agents. Somebody just tried to call me. That he was taken out by 2 FBI agents. But that clearly was a reference. Come on.
Imagine calling somebody during a live show.
And I hang up and she calls again. I mean, come on.
All the ladies are looking for Kevin tonight.
So anyways, the second statement is clearly not from the private investigator. It's from Turtle Boy's interview with Lucky. So Turtle Boy is now going to be, I would think, called to testify in this case to what Lucky told him. So I think that's very interesting. But Lucky is,
be a great witness for it. I mean, that conversation absolutely took place, and he broke that story about Lucky Loughran, and
I don't doubt it. Yep.
Right.
And that's the key. One of the main keys to this whole thing Was it there or was it not? And if it's proven by eyewitness testimony, because the only guy who could have seen it, that it wasn't there, it's game over. And that the appearance of this Ford Edge that we know Colin Albert had access to because we have it in the police report.
Well, there were three aspects to Lucky's account, and his account. All right. So in the first part of it is confirmed by the private investigator. And in that account, he reports that he didn't see a body. Now, so people can debate whether or not they think that's likely or not. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to that. I think it's possible to miss something if the body is. I've looked more closely into the description where it was, and it was described as kind of being more between the flagpole and the hydrant. So it was pretty far, and it was. I did see it was confirmed more recently in these documents today that it was 12 feet off the lawn. So it was in kind of a strange spot. It's hard to picture a vehicle going up in that spot, but it also, to me, is a little bit more easy to see that possibly a plow driver might miss it. But the other aspect of Lucky, now this comes strictly from the Turtle Boy interview. So Lucky did not tell the private investigator about the FBI agents. Now it's possible they came after the private investigator. But he also didn't seem to tell them about the Ford Edge being out there. So that was something new that he added to his interview with Turtle Boy. I find that a little bit interesting. And, we know that Lucky is kind of, without saying too much, a guy that might not be the most reliable witness. Is that the fairest way to say it? I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say it, but he's not going to be, I'm not saying he's dishonest or anything. I'm just trying to be as delicate as I can that he might not be the most reliable witness. He could be someone where ideas could be planted in his head or conversation could be unintentionally manipulated. I'm not accusing anybody of anything intelligent. So, any intentional. So,
yeah.
And anyways,
yeah. I mean, listen, he says the body wasn't there. He says that he saw the Ford Edge that we know Colin has access to sitting there.
Does he really see an edge? I mean, he didn't when he saw. When I look at the statement, he's going down the street and sees the edge. So sees the car there, so doesn't drive down the road because of it. So,
right,
because he doesn't want to plow them in. So do you really get that good of a look that you know that it's a Ford Edge? I'm a little skeptical about that. Which brings to the next question is who was parked there? Now we know the prosecution, based on their documents, and is going to suggest that it was Karen. I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying that's what's coming. And so people should be alert to that and be aware of it. They're going to suggest it was Karen that was parked there when he was plowing at that later time. I have no idea if that's going to be proven. I'm not taking a side on it. I'm pointing out that it's an interesting angle to this. Mm-hmm. Also, one more thing I just want to add to that. When you looked at Turtle Boy's interview with Lucky, based on his photographic memory, I found it odd, and I talked about it with Dave on the phone right after that, and Dave remembers this. I found the interview made it seem like Lucky was implying that the FBI was there with the private investigator, and that seems bizarre to me. I just don't picture that happening. But I think he might be confused.
Maybe, I think Lucky might be confused. Yeah. So maybe because he's trying to remember it, he wrote it down differently, or I don't know. But I mean, yeah, that would be bizarre if the feds allowed a private investigator to tag along. But maybe, maybe it's possible. But it's also possible that the private investigator had an assistant, and later on, as someone's talking to Lucky, he's able to get the idea that those are FBI guys. Hold on. The phone's buzzing again.
Sorry.
I guess it was two separate trips, so they were not together.
Okay, cool.
Two separate trips. FBI, private investigator.
So it was just the way it was worded in the thing. So
it must have been, yeah.
But it was worded that way. I'm a writer. I pay attention to words. So, but that doesn't mean it's not. It's translated from a call. So I mean, that's okay. So, anyways, it's worth looking into.
Yeah.
So
I want to talk about the edge too.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind, because I'm confused. And maybe it's the way that this was worded, but in the defense's motion, right after I stopped reading, they said that between 3:30 and 4 a.m., this is according to Lucky, when he was plowing Cedar Crest, he looked toward Fairview and observed a Ford Edge parked on the right side of the street in front of 34 Fairview.
Mhm.
It's unclear. I mean, maybe I'll have to look at a map, but he specified that the house was on the left, and now he's saying the car was on the right. So maybe he's looking at it from the other side. It just stuck out to me.
Good
Like,
catch.
And he also
it was
made
one
the
of those,
statement-
like-
he also made the statement that it was definitely not Brian Albert's Ford Edge.
Yes,
been known
he
to
did
drive it
say
in
that.
the pub. So we know it wasn't his Ford Edge, which we assume for a sergeant in the Boston Police Department would be his issued vehicle. That's a low profile undercover type vehicle. That's his work vehicle.
Right.
This
Well,
one-
How do we know
we
he
don't
knows
know what was there. Yeah,
sure?
we got to be pretty
No.
skeptical about what he's remembering or what he's being led to remember or whatever. Because if you look at, I looked at this interestingly on a map today I'm sorry, on images that Alexis is pretty similar in look to an Edge, enough similar that if you're driving at night, I'm telling you, you can look at it. I should have brought the images to post here, but it's worth thinking about it. You got to think
Yeah, I
about all these
disagree.
different. I disagree on the part.
Yep, on the
Listen,
fact that Alexis looks like a Ford Edge.
There's
They have
there
very
an S,
different
there,
back ends, man.
I mean, they're a similar size SUV. I mean, yeah,
Similar
one is a
size,
lower.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all I'm just saying. You're driving down at night and you see an SUV parked there. It's pretty easy for someone to convince you that it's, and you don't know what the make is, but someone could say, was it a Ford Edge? Yeah, I think it was. I mean, you just got to be careful in this case. That's all I'm saying. But
that's true. That's true. I'll give you that. I
believe I have. I
But
really believe I have been careful. It's just I have no evidence that tells me that Karen Reed hit him. and
you got the
killed him.
taillight evidence.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm,
You got the taillight evidence. You got the broken glass taillight on his clothing. You have a lot of evidence. Yeah,
Kevin.
and you know,
I'm hysterical. My boyfriend is laying on the ground, bloody and not breathing or breathing slow with very little pulse. I have the taillight on me. I jump on top of him the whole time. We have just now transferred these microscopic. I mean, it's easily explainable. in court.
I don't think that you can get now. We'd have to see experts to weigh in on this, but I'm really skeptical that you can get taillight evidence, a broken microscopic taillight on you just from looking at your taillight first. I mean, but you're much more likely to get it from a taillight breaking on you, which would create a cloud of microscopic fragments.
Okay.
But again, you have to look at it, the totality of evidence, and you have to look at
Right.
things from different
Oh,
sides.
I am.
And so, I mean, so it's possible that someone planted evidence. It's possible that Karen transferred microscopic fibers. I'm not, microscopic pieces of glass. I'm just saying.
We had a case back in 1994 where everyone, oh my God, how did they plant evidence? And they blew a whole case on it. And that guy walked free. His name was O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
There's a ton of precedent for that. He did everything but leave his fucking business card at the scene, and he walked free because of one corrupt cop planting a glove.
It happens. No question it happens. And who knows the reasons why. But I mean, but when you say there is no evidence, there is. It's just a matter of trying to figure out if it was planted, which is, that's a rare thing for planting of evidence in a murder case, especially when it comes to framing someone else, because someone's risking their whole career and their whole livelihood and their whole family to do something like that. And they're not going to do that just to fit in with the cool people. There has to be a
When you
motive.
think about it, and you realize that these people have been brought up in this corrupt institution where they know that they're going to be covered down for. It makes a lot more sense on why they would do it.
Okay.
What won't you say or do if you know that this thing is never going to come out in the wash? What wouldn't you do?
I wouldn't risk my life to help somebody else cover up a murder. But that's me. So I don't know. I wouldn't risk my family's livelihood and everything. No, I wouldn't risk it. But that doesn't mean someone else wouldn't. So I don't know. I'm not.
You're talking about you as a very moral person. You haven't been raised in this type of thing. Again, I beg everybody, Google U.S. Army cover up murder. It happens every day in these corrupt institutions, all the time. They gave Pat Tillman a Silver Star, made up a fake story about him charging a mountain, killing Taliban, when they knew full well he was killed by friendly fire. They lied to his parents. They lied to his family. They lied to everybody.
Did anybody go to jail? Did anybody go to jail for that?
Nobody ever goes to jail.
But if Michael Proctor is caught planting evidence, he's going to jail for a long time. You've said that on this show that he's going to jail for the most of the rest of his life.
Yeah, he's going to be chained up like a dog in solitary confinement with a overworked, underpaid CO in his face every single day.
So in order to do that, you have to have sufficient motive to do it, and that's what I'm saying I don't see here. So
the motive is I am going to help out my buddy. The call was made somewhere, probably by the top guy in the whole food chain. We all know his name. And everyone said, this is what we do. Everyone covers down for everyone. There's no chance that this comes out in the wash. Do what you got to do.
Okay. It's been really fun. I want to go into the next project. Are you guys ready to go into that? Is that okay with you guys? Aaron, do you want to? I want to give you last comment on this, please. I don't want to make you seem like I didn't.
No, you're good. I mean, I honestly, that was pretty much, I mean, I have talking points like written down like a nerd. And that was really what I wanted to get into, the glass, the weird thing about Lucky's statement and, everything that we talked about. So no, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thanks. You guys have done great so far. And it's good to have the back and forth. And I think that's what people need to hear. We wouldn't want to come on here and just hear all three of us presenting one side. So it's been a great discussion. You guys have done good. So I want to talk about a new project that we're doing on the channel, and we're really excited about it. And so we want to do our own YCT profiling thing for killers, serial killers, those kind of killers. And you might be tempted to say, why? The FBI has profilers, and probably the various state police departments have that. And there's been all kinds of research done on it, and we don't have those kind of resources. But I think, Dave has studied more true crime than anybody I ever met. And we barely can mention a case without him. It has to be the most obscure case in the world if he doesn't know something about it. So, and Aaron is the best researcher I know. So I think that we can have fun with this, and it'd be something that people on the channel that might want to participate might even come in with us and give their own ideas on it. So we talked about it and we all thought it was a good idea. So Aaron, what do you think we should do with this?
Well, I have several ideas, but the one we were discussing yesterday actually is kind of my baby on this. So the way that I would love to do this, the way that I would love to introduce this, and the way that it's going in my mind would be to sort of share with everyone the points that we're looking at as far as all these older cases, and then sort of get our feet wet with, cases that have been solved, cases that are old, cases that are famous, killers with a lot of, with high body counts and everything, just to get a feel for, A, B, C, whatever. But then to use those chops after a period to start looking into unsolved cases.
Dave?
Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, I think the project is really interesting because of really the work of one guy, and that's Dennis Rader, the BTK killer in Wichita, who broke the mold of everything that we believed about serial killers. The old common misconception was they don't stop, they can't stop. Well, BTK stopped for a long, long time, right? They stick out like lepers. You're going to know who they are. This guy melted into society as good as any chameleon in the world. And that's really why we're interested, because what me and Kevin and Dubs have realized is that we actually don't know anything about these guys. And so we want to do a study and learn more and present that to the public. So it really comes from BTK. I just reread Douglas's book on him again, and
so good.
It's like blowing up dust. It's all you get in your eyes is just more dust. You never get to the end, right? So
right.
Yeah, I'm very excited to do it, and that's our true passion. We cover Karen Read because we have to, because people want to hear about it, and we have strong opinions. But our true passion is stuff like that.
Yeah, and so what we want to do is have, I think, a spreadsheet, which that's the kind of stuff that Aaron and someone else on our team, Brittany, is good at. Those I hate spreadsheets, but so we'd have categories. that you could start to really kind of narrow, and you would do a search on this. So this is someone that buried his victims or disposed of his victims, and this is someone that just left his victims out there. Like, say, we've discussed a New Bedford serial killer where he just left his victims on the highway. So I think we want to do a lot with that, and I think it could be productive. So what we actually want to do is now Dave has spoke extensively to Douglas, John Douglas, right? He's the one of the original, if not the original, FBI profilers, and he's the basis of the series Mindhunter. He's got multiple other books on it, including on BTK. I've got a great book, The Killer Across the Table. So what we're thinking of doing is giving you guys homework if you're interested. So you don't actually have to read the book. You can watch the series if you prefer. So we're going to go over Mindhunter. We're going to read. Me and Aaron and Dave are going to read the book, and I think they've already read it, but I'm going to read it again. And
I'm going to read it again.
yeah, and we'll just go through it and think about it, maybe in terms of and building our own list. And then, so if you guys are interested, you'd like to do that and join us in the conference. Anybody that wants to join the team, we welcome them. But if you want to just join us in chat and give us your ideas when we're on, we'll say next week, say about a week, we'll do a show on that, and we'll try to put into context some of the other cases like BTK. And also, I think it's important that, so when I was first started looking at the or more recently the Idaho murders, all right, the Moscow, Idaho, the kids with Brian Kohlberger. I was looking at the FBI profiling, not the official FBI, but retired FBI agents who were all over the news, and it was awful. They didn't nail it.
Right.
I kind of nailed it on the channel in my predictions. I think a lot of people did, that this was a guy who was kind of a beginning serial killer. He killed for the thrill of it. He wasn't, but it was really the FBI profilers that we saw were really getting it wrong. So I think we could be useful here and getting this information to the public. I think it could be productive. So
I think that, and I think that even Douglas will tell you in his own books and in when you ask him that FBI profiling is an inexact science, right? We're not always right. We're it's one of those things where we can give you a guide, but this is not the answer. And he says that over and over and over again in his writing and his speaking, that when you bring me on to do a profile, I'm giving you a small guide into what I think, judged by victimology and multiple other factors. So I think people need to keep that in mind, that, it's not a magic elixir that can get you, solve all your cold cases. We have thousands and thousands of cold cases all over the country, including here in New England, where we have a very, very low murder clearance rate in solving crimes. So, especially murders. So
I've already got a big list of ones that I want to try and look at, so, but cart, horse. So let's,
yeah.
I think we can kind of look at some famous cases because they're really useful, because everybody kind of is familiar with them, and there's good books or series out there on them, and also maybe try to apply them sometimes to something that's a little bit more obscure. That Dave has always been very interested in those forgotten cases, the ones that people. So that's why we reach out to people looking for tips on that kind of stuff. So I think we can always maybe contrast those kind of things and see if we can develop insights into something that's unsolved like that.
Yep, that's the dream anyway.
All right. Well, is there anything else you guys want to go over before we say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, I just want to make one more point on Lucky Loughran, if I could, not to go all the way back, but his father was like the big shot lawyer of the town. Lucky Loughran knew everybody. He was a Canton townie. He could recognize cars. He could recognize people. I mean, he knew everybody. So I don't think that Lucky would be wrong in his IDing of a vehicle. That's all I'm saying. Lucky.
No, that's good context, Dave.
I bring up the point about him being his dad being a big shot there, is that he was Canton through and through. He was a townie. He knew everybody there.
Isn't his brother what's his brother?
Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Board of Selectmen. Okay. All right. So he's a very, very well-connected guy, and definitely didn't want, sometimes in these cases, always in these cases, there are people that are seeking the spotlight, and you have to be very, very careful about it. Dave has been getting, I get some, but Dave's getting flooded with messages over the last month as this has taken off, for people that are really just kind of trying to inject themselves into a case. But Lucky's not like that. Lucky's a guy that absolutely wants to avoid the spotlight. No question about it. So he wasn't. So Whether his information is reliable, I don't know. I think there are other legitimate questions about it. But it's like everything in this case, nothing but questions to me. But
Yeah.
Aaron, do you have anything else you want to add before we
Nope.
head out to the bar for
Nope.
last call?
Just super excited to get going on the.
Hey,
the
I want to
spreadsheet
answer
and nerd out.
Kevin Colby's question. Is that he said, Dave, what gives me the creeps is that most of the pervs in your book are dead. But what's going on around us now and all the new and up and coming pedos? So in my new book, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't want to start a drinking game every time I mention the book, but I'm proud of it. It's been a lot of years.
Is that a drinking game?
Yeah. Somebody said it the other day in the comments, and I said, just do water. You'll be plenty hydrated when I'm done. But I talk a lot about all the newer stuff that's come up, particularly Operation Playpen and Pacifier, which were the biggest online stings of child pornographers in the world. Hundreds of men went down. Instead of congregating on park benches, as I wrote about in Monster, they're congregating now on the internet. A child porn warrant was served in Sunrise, Florida a couple years back. 2 FBI agents were shot and killed. There's a lot of strange happenstances around that. The lead investigator on Playpen and Pacifier, a guy named Daniel Alphen, who was an FBI agent, ended up getting killed in that raid, incredibly, in a twist of crazy fate. Alphen was the lead child pornography investigator for the Bureau. This guy was a fucking hero. I mean, he took down so many scumbags who were abusing children, and he was killed serving a child pornography warrant on a guy that we know nothing about. And I think I do a pretty good job exposing exactly who this guy was in the book. So stay tuned.
It was Huber, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And there was a woman too, an FBI agent, I think.
Yeah, her name was Laura Schleschenberger.
What the?
Yep. And John Lee Huber was the murderer. So be on the lookout for that. All these guys are dead, but there's definitely a new crop of guys who
Connor,
mostly on the internet. So
hey, Connor.
Bye, Connor.
That kid's never scared of anything.
No.
Hey, we got through a whole show. Listen,
Without the screaming.
He didn't tear the place down. He's not hanging from the chandelier. You only had to use the bathroom once. I'm happy.
I want to add this. I want to just respond to people making a joke about Dave plugging his book. Listen, keep plugging your book, dude, because I got to say, it's not easy to be a writer, and it's really, really difficult to get your first book out there and to get unless you have a major publishing house that's going to put a huge budget behind it. And it's hard to get that as a first-time writer. I think Dave is going to get that now, but for this book, man, it's really important to get that kind of support. And so keep plugging it, buddy. That's what you got to do. And people won't be sorry about buying the book. It's a very enjoyable book. It's rare. There's a lot of really good true crime books out there, but yours is kind of also a firsthand account where you walked in the footsteps of the monsters and the victims and explained some of your own personal history. And it's deeply moving because of it. So people won't regret it.
Nothing more gratifying other than my kids is when people message me and say, I read the book. It got me interested in reading again. It got me to know these crimes. I feel like I know you, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I have thousands of new friends, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. So, I really appreciate it. And that's why I'll be forever grateful, frankly, to guys like Turtle Boy who brought me on their show and allowed me to have eyes on me and my work. And there's just no amount of gratitude I could say. And him and many, many others who have gone on the show to talk about the book. So, thank you. It's so much gratitude. You know how it is. Anybody else in life can fucking definitely understand what I mean. You put a lot of work into something. You're very passionate about it. And someone says, hey, that was good. I enjoyed it. You know how gratifying that is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I see a true crime book in Aaron's future. I really do.
It's like 3/4 written. So.
And I a couple, because I also want you to do one on the guy in the house, the guy that lived in the walls that was haunting people.
Yeah, we got to
Well, the problem with that is our guest for that episode is actually writing the book on that or has written the book on that. And I don't want to alienate the guy. He's a good source of information. So
yeah, we have to get him.
I'll find another story.
That story
he's ready.
That's
ready.
So we'll get him on. And is he doing a documentary on it too? Or
yes. Yeah, he's
right.
releasing both at the same time. So.
Oh, okay. So yeah, let's get him on and we'll talk about. I would love to get it inside that house.
We'll hype it for him
because it's.
I'm like this close, man. I just I've driven by it over and over just to see. And like when you look at the house after hearing everything about what happened, you look at the house and you're like, no way, I got to get in there.
Well, we can get in through the walls, right?
The owners. Well, no, you got to be in the house first. You got in through a crawl space in the house.
All right.
So,
all right, guys. Well, thank you very much. It's been another enjoyable show. And for those of you that are still with us, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.